today, Geoff Cottrill. I am so excited to have you here on my little old podcast, my Power to Speak podcast, which is relatively new. And to have someone of your caliber is just amazing. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
You're more than welcome. So, Geoff, you have been a marketing officer for Coca Cola in North America. You have been I've got a whole list here. Converse, general manager and CMO of Converse, former marketing officer of the Starbucks entertainment business. What's the entertainment arm of Starbucks?
Starbucks used to have a record label. They used to own a number of actually small record stores called Hear Music, and they started a record label called Hear Music, and we signed artists directly, made albums. It was quite a fun journey and experience living in Seattle and doing that. It was a lot of fun.
Wow! A chair of the Grammy Foundation. How did that come about?
I guess years ago when I got to Converse, one of my mentors is a man named Joel Katz. He's a famous music lawyer in the United States. He called me one day. He's been a mentor of mine for years. He called me one day right after I got to Converse and said, hey, we're going to nominate you to be on the Grammy Foundation. You can't say no. And I remember sitting in my office thinking, why would I possibly say no to that? So I was involved in that organization for 10 years. And really the purpose of that organization was to raise money for music education and for music preservation, to preserve the great stories in the history of music. So I was on that board for 10 years. I served as its vice chair and its chair, and an incredibly satisfying experience because the arts are so important and important to me personally. So to be able to help raise money to help young musicians, meant a lot to me.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, the arts mean a lot to me. I've always worked in and around the arts. So is that something that you did as a child? Is it? I mean, obviously, music is a big part of, and we'll go deeper into obviously the marketing side. But do you think there's a lot of music involved in what you've done as in your career too? So did that precede the marketing side?
Well, it's funny. I've always loved music. When I was 13 years old, I grew up in Tampa, Florida, in the U.S., and I used to sell Cokes fountain Cokes in a big tray when I weighed about 85 pounds and walking through selling Cokes at rock concerts. It was the only way at 13 years old that my parents would let me go see a concert. So I would go in the premise of selling Cokes. I would sell Cokes, and then I would throw the tray in the stands, and then I would climb up and watch the show. So I saw people like Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Yes, the Rolling Stones, all these great bands when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, my dream was that I somehow wanted to run a record label someday, which is an odd thing for a kid who grew up in Tampa, Florida, to think. I love music. I always did. It never once occurred to me because I can't play guitar. I can't play drums, can't play keyboard. I can't sing. So it never occurred to me to be in a band, to start a band, to join a band. It just always just an interest. The business side of music was always interesting. So later in my career, the roads just seemed to collide. I was doing a bunch of music stuff the first time I worked for Coke. I became the head of entertainment marketing globally for the company, and I did all kinds of stuff in music and film and celebrity. And then I had the opportunity to go to Starbucks and lead marketing and lead the business development for their record label, which was my dream literally coming true. So I've been really fortunate that the things that I love have also found their way into the things I love to do as professionally. So it's been loads of fun.
Yeah. I mean, when I think back probably to the 80s more with Coke especially, they were always the Michael Jackson TV adverts. There was they were always intrinsically involved with the music business even back then. Were you involved at that early stage?
No. That, in fact, it's funny. Michael Jackson was Pepsi. But Coke was still very involved in music. No, I didn't. I think my first stint at Coca Cola started in 1996. Right. So it was well after that. But yeah, I mean, Coca Cola and their brands have always been a part of culture, and it was an honor to be able to work there and to be able to participate and contribute on some level to some of the fun stuff that the brands did along the way.
Yeah. So do you think in the marketing world that you inhabited, that you kind of managed to steer yourself into sort of anything that had an involvement with music?
It's a great question. I think, yeah, initially, yeah, I mean, I was just so passionate about that kind of stuff that I found, particularly when you're in a business that is selling products to young people, things like music and celebrity and the things that are happening in culture and sports are going to be important as part of your marketing mix. Yeah, I mean, I won't say that I didn't have a load of fun personally along the way, but I always tried to make sure that whatever we were doing was right for the consumers that we were trying to connect with. So, yeah, I mean, I consider myself to be one of the most fortunate people in the world for about 100 different reasons, but my career's been a lot of fun, and I've been able to do some really interesting things, and in many cases that have worked from a marketing standpoint, which is also very important.
Yeah. So why marketing? Why did you end up in marketing? What was it about marketing?
It's funny. When I graduated from college, I really didn't know what I was going to do at all. I really didn't have a clue. I was, 20 years old, 21 years old. I used to think I was going to go work for my father. I ended up not going to work for my father. I got recruited by Procter & Gamble in sales. I started by selling coffee and orange juice to really small grocery stores in North Florida. And then over time, I was able to sort of move beyond taking all my sales experience and moving into marketing. But it's funny, I've been able to go a lot of really interesting places in my life, but I never really had a master plan to get there. I just marketing just sort of became something that I became interested in along the way. And I've been fortunate that a lot of really smart people, way smarter than me, have taught me things along the way, pulled me along, mentored me, kicked me in the butt when I needed to be kicked, pulled me along, pushed me, and taught me. So marketing has become, an important part of my life.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting then. So do you think because you didn't have that direct, this, I'm going to be a marketer, this is what I'm going to do, that somehow that opened up? So when you were at Procter and Gamble, we were talking before we started recording that you didn't feel very creative within that role. You didn't think you were creative.
Right.
And so how then did you sort of open up your own creativity in an environment that didn't feel very creative?
Well, it's funny. I was there for 11 years, greatest 11 years, an incredible company. They're a very different company today than they were when I was there. But, they have a very strict and straightforward, they had a very strict and straightforward process about how you learned about selling and how you learned about marketing. And I remember used to raise my hands in meetings and say, hey, I have an idea. What about this? I would be told in a very, very encouraging way, oh, Geoff, we love the way you think, like that's incredible. We love your initiative, but we do it this way. And you'd be like, oh, okay. And then, in the next meeting you go, oh, what about this? What about this? Geoff, seriously, your initiative is really something we want you to keep doing, but like we do it this way. And over time you start to think, well, my ideas must just be really bad. So you stop raising your hand. You go, oh, and then you go, well, it must not be the way we do things, so I'm not going to speak up.
Yeah.
And I met my now wife, who I've been married to for 26 years, told me, she was a creative director in an advertising agency, and told me one day, you are a very creative thinker. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not. No. I'm this is what I am. I work at P&G and this is what I do. And she's like, no, you're so much more than that. I hate to tell you, I hate to break this to you, but you need to embrace your creativity. And the more she encouraged me, the more I started to open my mind. And then I left P&G and went to Coca Cola. I worked at Coke 2 different times, but I got to Coke and I had an incredibly creative boss that also encouraged me to use my head and to think and to speak up, and to, if you have an idea, speak up. And if it's a good one, we'll do it. And if it's not, we'll either tell you it's not a good idea, or we'll build on it and we'll turn it into a good idea. So, it's the people in my life that have opened my mind to what could be. And I'm extrememly grateful to people like my wife and to some of the bosses that I've had along the way.
Yeah. So that particular boss used your initiative, that in Procter and Gamble was just initiative, and
right.
Showed you that it was actually creativity.
Yeah, I mean, I had a really interesting experience, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a month into my first time at Coke. I was in a meeting. I sat there. I didn't say anything. I had ideas, but I didn't say anything because there were like 15 people in the room, and I was new and thought, I'm not going to say anything because that's not what you do. And after the meeting, we were walking out in the hall, and I said to my boss, "Hey, have you ever thought about this? What about this?" And I'll never forget, he stopped and said, "Oh, excuse me, what?" And I was like, "Have you ever thought about such and such?" And he's like, "Oh, hang on 1 second. Everybody, let's get back in the conference room." And I thought, and he pulled everyone back in the conference room and said, "Hey, have you guys all met the new guy, Geoff? He just got here from P&G. Really smart guy. He's done a lot of really good things. He just had an idea." And I thought we would get everyone back in the conference room. And then he said, before I do, Geoff, you were just in this meeting with all these people for the last hour. And I'm like, yeah. He said, "And you sat there and didn't say a word. You didn't speak up. You didn't say a word. And then you like have the nerve to give me an idea in the hallway afterwards." So like, hey, everyone, I want you to meet Geoff. He's the guy that doesn't speak in meetings. And he said, it's too late to share your idea, but I want you to know that this is Coca Cola, and it's okay for you to have ideas. And in fact, you're expected to have them when you're in the meetings, not in the hallways. And so this is never going to happen again. You're going to speak up in the meetings, and I pay you to think and to push. And if it's a great idea, we're going to do it. And if it's not, I'm going to tell you it's not, and I'll tell you why. But you need to show up. And for me, someone might have looked at that as getting scolded in a meeting. I looked at it as the greatest gift anyone had ever given me in my career, because I was like, what? You mean all these crazy things in my head, all these ideas, I can actually say them? And he was like, yeah. And then he jokingly said to everybody, "Hey, everyone, you're going to be 10 minutes late to your next meeting. When you get there, I want you to tell everyone in your next meeting that you were late because this new guy, Geoff, didn't share his ideas in the last meeting." And I was like, touche, you got me. Okay, game on. And from then it was like, oh my gosh, the world is so different. And we did some incredible things as a result of being allowed to think, allowed to be creative. It's a funny thing that it seems so intuitive.
Because that's an amazing story. I mean, who was that guy? I would, just how
his name is Steve Koonin. He's one of the greatest influences in my life. He's now the chief executive officer of the Atlanta Hawks professional basketball team in Atlanta. He's the most creative, most amazing person I've ever worked for and with. Continues to inspire me on a daily basis. But he's I jokingly used to tell him, it's your fault. You're responsible for me.
That is bizarre, because it's, in a way, you'd think that is quite belittling. That is quite, that.
Yeah, he didn't do it in a belittling way at all, though. It wasn't delivered in a belittling way. It was delivered in a bit of a wake up call, but like in a really like, hey,
yeah,
we're paying you to be here. You're in the meeting. You're paid to be in the meeting. Like, speak up.
But it is also that thing about permission. I mean, that seems to have come up a lot with me and what I do over the last sort of couple of years. Like I was saying, when I've been in a workshop with adults, and we're doing drama and improvisation, and working on scripted stuff, developing characters, all that sort of stuff. It's that giving people permission to play, or if I'm working on their voices or coaching them to make presentations, it's giving them permission to put their ideas out there. And I think, school, does school kill creativity, as Sir Ken Robinson, bless him, said many years ago. It's, when we're at school, we are so bound up by rules and what we can and can't do, is that we take that forward into our lives, and as adults need to be given permission to do almost everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some kind of conspiracy against creativity. Yeah. When you're a creative kid in school, you're seen as being, outside the norm of, what's acceptable. And you're like, well, who gets to define what is acceptable? Yeah. It's in many cases, it's those creative misfits that were kids that are the ones that go on to change the world. Yeah. But yet we try to hold them back and direct them into, this is the right path, young lady or young man. And you're like, okay, yeah, I get it.
If it wasn't for your wife, maybe, or that just, or that boss, or even if you'd have stayed at P&G and not left, what
Yeah,
a waste. What a
no,
waste of
exactly.
creativity, and how many people are there
Yeah.
that don't, aren't given the permission, and so don't speak up.
No, I mean, I thought this is who I am, before I left. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is who I am. And my wife was like, no, you're so much more than that.
Yeah,
Like, no. This is what I am. I've been doing this for 11 years. Therefore, this is what I am. This must be what my career is going to be. And she
yeah,
was like, no,
absolutely.
it's so much broader. So
Yeah,
yeah, we should give each other permission. We
yeah,
shouldn't, we should take the time to give people that we care about and that we see a spark in. We should give them the permission to be,
yeah.
to let go and to be creative and to think differently.
Yeah, I have an artist friend who lost her husband around about the same time I lost mine, a few years, 3 years ago, and she was posting on Instagram, and she put up a fantastic thing that said, "He gave me my ruby slippers," and it's that thing of somebody being that supportive, or just
Yeah.
kind of giving you that permission, that gift to say you can always come home.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah. What a beautiful thing to say.
yeah, there's
What a
not enough
beautiful
people
thing
in
to
the
say.
world, are there, that can be that supportive,
Yeah.
like
I
your.
don't know why it is that. I don't know why it's that way. I don't know why it's that way. It's the Picasso quote, we're all born artists. And, the challenge is to stay one as you grow up, because you
Yeah,
keep, the world conspires against you. No, you're not supposed to think that way. And you're like, well, why not? Tell
yeah,
me why. Where's the rule book? You get to make the rules. Why don't I get to make the rules?
yeah. And so,
So
well, thinking about campaigns, then marketing campaigns. I mean, I've heard you talk before about Converse, and how you came to that from a different angle. So tell us a little bit about what happened at Converse, and how you kind of not rebranded them. Obviously, not, it wasn't a rebrand, but you kind of renewed them for a new generation.
yeah, well, I mean, I was part of a bigger team that did this. So I often get credited with a lot of stuff that was the result of a big team working together. So I want to make sure this wasn't me. It wasn't some magical person that went in there, but we went in and we were getting ready to turn 100 years old, and we were a heritage basketball brand. And, you walk through the building and it was pictures of old basketball players in, uniforms from the 50s and 40s. And you thought, well, this is, and then you go out in the world and you see these really cool kids in rock bands and street artists and, wearing the old Chuck Taylors and punk rockers. And you thought, well, gosh, why is the image of what we look at ourselves in the building so different from what is the image that people think about us in the world? And we were really determined to tell people that we were a heritage basketball brand, and we were getting ready to turn 100 years old. And this sums up like the moment that we thought, okay, we have to change. We're in a focus group and we were talking about our 100-year anniversary, and we were very proud of it. And the moderator was pushing these young people, hey, Converse is turning 100. It's great. It's a great thing. Not many brands make it to 100. And the kids were like, yeah, okay, cool. And then it was like, no, you don't understand. 100, that's a big deal for a brand to make it to 100 years old. Yeah, all right, whatever. And then he came back to it a third time and said, I want to talk about this 100-year anniversary one more time, because it's a really big deal. And this young person looked at the moderator and said, hey man, you keep telling me how old you are. I'm just going to think you're old. And for us, it was like, oh my gosh, we're so impressed with how old we are, and they don't really care. So why do we care so much? Why would we want to work so hard to make them care about how old we are? They don't care. They only care about now. So we started to think about, we had all these incredible creative people that were taking our brand in a really unusual and different places. So we just followed them. And when we got in the rooms with them, we said, what can we do to help? How can we participate in what you're doing, instead of just market to you and ask you to buy shoes every time we talk to each other? How can we help you? And like, we kept asking that question. We started in China with a couple of punk rock bands who told us, which was shocking, we've always wanted to play our music in another city. And we were like, what do you mean? Well, we've only been able to play our music in small places in Beijing. Like, we've never left Beijing. Well, I'm sorry, what? So we're like, so we literally bought a bus, and we put them in a bus and we toured them around 5 or 6 cities around China, and we shot a documentary film. And it was like, this is amazing. And it was a universal story about young people who had something to say, who were following a dream. And for us, it was like, why wouldn't we do that? And then we came back to Brooklyn and we did the same thing. And kids told us, I have no place to record. Okay, we'll build a recording studio for you. And what? You will? Yeah, sure. Like, because we want to help you. And we did that. And we just flipped the way we thought about marketing to people, particularly these kids are not kids that you can market to. They're ones that like, they have a BS meter and like right away, they're like, I don't like you. So you have to show up and bring something to the party. And that's what we did. And as a result, it changed all of our lives dramatically. Not just our business grew dramatically, but it changed the way everybody on the team thought about how marketers and brands should engage with people, not consumers, not target markets, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so just to understand, the money that would have been spent on a huge campaign was then put into recording studios and buses and that kind of thing. And actually, do you think that it was the sales were more successful doing it that way?
So, I mean, there are business cases to be made. Advertising can work effectively, but we ran a recording studio. We built and ran a recording studio that recorded with over 3,000 artists over 5 years. That it cost us to build and run the studio with the equivalent of 1 8-week flight of television advertising cost. So we sacrificed 1 8-week campaign for 5 years of interaction with consumers in a deep and meaningful way. Wow. And each band that came in picked up their phone. They started taking pictures. They started broadcasting to their social media networks. Look what Converse is doing with me. And it was way, way more effective. And over the nine or so years that we were there, we went from about a $350 million business to almost a $3 billion business. So we grew dramatically. Yeah. We grew dramatically. Trend helped us. Taking control markets back helped us. But certainly the way we connected with young creative people had a massive impact as well.
I mean, I ask really because, I am a relatively new business. I don't know. I didn't even know what content marketing was up until about 2 years ago. And now I'm looking at growing my business, but in a different way. I can't afford a huge campaign to put myself out there. So I'm looking at, this is a big part of my content marketing, to put myself out there and do that sort of stuff. But I mean, it's just amazing. And don't you wish that more companies would work that way? Because surely it's a way of engaging, of helping, of being of value, rather than just kind of, buy my car.
I mean, you have the conversation with your chief financial officer, they'll say, well, we're not going to do this. We're not going to build a studio. What's the payout? What's the ROI? Yeah. And I said, look, it's never been done before. I don't know what the ROI is. Like, I don't know. But if you want me to just do what everybody else has already done because you can prove an ROI, that seems a little lazy, honestly. We believe in this idea and we're going to prove it out. And if it doesn't return the ROI, then okay, we learned and we'll move on. But, and it did return the ROI. I mean, the amount of press coverage we got alone for opening the studio was more than literally the press we got before the studio we ever put a nail in the wall was worth more than what it cost us to build the place. So, it was certainly a social experiment, but it was one that worked. It was one that reset the way we all think about how to connect with consumers. And it was super fun.
Yeah. And do you think other companies have now taken that idea? Because it seems to be.
I don't know if they've taken the idea. I mean, there's only my first boss at Coke told me there's only a handful of original ideas in the world and everything's an adaptation of those. So I wouldn't say we were the only people that ever did that. Certainly Red Bull's done a great job over the years of really committing to culture and supporting it and amplifying it. I think Vans has done a really nice job over the years of doing the same thing. I think to some extent, Nike's done an amazing job as well. So I think lots of brands are putting it as part of their part of their mix for sure. But
Yeah.
there's so many brands and so many companies chasing the branded content, chasing the dream, and they lose the plot because they make it about themselves.
Yeah.
I used to say, no one in the world woke up this morning anywhere and was stretching in bed and thought, gosh, I hope Sprite has a new YouTube video today. Right. But we as marketers think that YouTube video is so critical to our success. And we put it out there and then we wonder why no one watches it. Well, no one watches it because it was not needed. It was unnecessary.
Yeah.
And it didn't add any value, and it made us feel good as a insert any brand name there, by the way, not just Sprite was just an example, but insert any brand name there, and we get up in the morning and we think we're so incredibly important. We think the world's waiting for our amazing content, and that's just not the case.
Yeah.
They're just not. So to understand that before you hit the record button on any content is important to think about.
Yeah. I mean, certainly brand's voice has kind of changed in the tone somehow. I've noticed over the years, certainly over the last couple of years, and I don't know whether that's to do with social media or just, a generational thing, sort of the generations are moving on and it's now a different way of communicating. But just in terms of copy, in terms of, the way companies, brands are now writing and the way that they're putting content out there, it seems to me that the tone has changed somehow.
The tone has changed because years ago there was no ability to talk back, right? So brands would stand on top of a hill and yell their message down at you and continue to beat you over the head with it with loads and loads of media, and you as a consumer were helpless to respond. You responded by whether or not you bought their products, but they didn't really care what you had to say. Well, now it's instant. A brand does something and I can instantly weigh in on a number of social media platforms. I can weigh in and say something.
Yeah. So
you have to be more careful. You have to be more considerate, and you have to understand that the game's changed. It's a two-way conversation. And I know it sounds a bit cliche, but it is you have to consider the person receiving your content and their context and whether or not they want to receive it and whether or not they want to hear what you have to say. And gone are the days of me getting up in the morning and saying, my brand is going to say this, and I'm going to spend tens of millions of dollars to say it, and no one's going to talk back. Well, that's just not the case anymore. So the power has shifted away from the brands, which I think is amazing. It's super interesting.
And how do you think they've coped during COVID, though? I mean, obviously the tone of voice has had to change, but do you think that they've done it well?
Who?
Anybody again?
Any brands?
Any brand name? Do you think that they've judged the room kind of thing during COVID?
Yeah, well, I think we're starting to see. I think we're just, and it's sad that it's just the case, but we're just starting to see brands, I think, start to really get how they can play along. I think when COVID first hit, no one knew what to do. So everyone shut down their advertising and their media, and they said it'd be better if we don't say anything right now. And so, and in some cases it's to me, a very appropriate thing to do at the beginning of all this. We don't know what's going to happen. People are dying. Why are we advertising right now? This is probably not a good time. And on the other hand, the finance people were like, yeah, it's great. We can save some money because we're afraid our business is going to fall. So we need to save our marketing dollars. So that happened. Then I think you saw brands start to come out, in my opinion, way too early to say, oh, we know how you feel. We're in this with you. We're going to get through this together. And how we're going to do that is we're going to offer you a touchless delivery of our new sport utility vehicle. And it was like the same commercial over and over with a different brand. But to me, it was the most insulting, inappropriate. First of all, you're a car. You don't know how I feel. You're a car. You're not in it with me. You're a car. And at the end of your soppy little statement, you still want me to buy something from you. Yeah. And people are dying right now. And what are you doing? So I found that to be, as a marketer, offensive. To think, why are we, I know we have to still sell things, and I go, but come on, we can do better than this. And I think you're now starting to see a softened tone, and you're starting to see brands think about, maybe we don't tell people we know how they feel. Maybe we just do things to make people feel different, maybe think differently. Like, let's get their mind off of it for a second,
Yeah.
instead of walking right into it. So it's certainly something that I think we're going to study for years and years to come.
Yeah.
The way brands acted here.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me think of, previously there have been other pandemics. There have been other huge chunks of time that people have been locked down, going back to the the plagues and the Black Death. They reckon there wouldn't have been a Renaissance had it not have been for the plague that ravaged Europe back in the 15th century, I think it was. So there wouldn't have been Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo, or all those sort of things. Isaac Newton, during the 1666, when he was taken out of Cambridge University and was locked down at home, discovered calculus, or his year of wonder. And so there is innovation around all of these things.
Definitely.
So I do believe, and I don't know what you think, is that at the end of this sort of at least a year, if not however many more months it may well go on, that there has been innovation, there has been opportunity for people to spend time working out what it is they want to do, and whether that's something creative, and also the problem solving, all the issues that have come up in the last year that suddenly we need solutions for. That things, the vaccine in itself has been turned around and created in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I completely agree. I mean, we have seen massive innovation. We've seen acceleration of innovation. I mean, from things as simple as like, okay, restaurants are closed. Boy, it would be great if I could get my food delivered, to delivery companies showing up, and like it's remarkable the creativity that's come out of this. I think you're going to see, and we're starting to see, art, and art in the broadest sense, be something that continues to pull us out of this as well. I believe that we are going to experience an incredible amount of interesting new visual, film, and music that's going to come out of this. I watched firsthand, an artist, spend time alone writing and recording and writing and recording. And I think that, as soon as we're able to go back to live shows and stuff, I think it's going to be really, really interesting. So yeah, I mean, yes, there is massive hope in what has been a really bad situation.
Yeah.
But there's massive hope in the human spirit, and what we can accomplish given a moment to be able to think about, how could I approach that differently?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a bad thing, but we're going to wind up, I think, a stronger world as a result of some of these new thinking that's come out. Yeah.
I think people will look at each other differently too. I think just as communities, I think people will hopefully be kinder.
I sure hope so.
Yeah. But I've seen some fantastic theatre on Zoom. I watched a theatre company called Degenerate Fox, who I interviewed, Laura Killeen, for a podcast, and they do 30 plays in 60 minutes. Yeah, 30 plays in 60 minutes. So 2 minutes per play.
That's
all
awesome.
All new plays. And they used to do it in a little pub in Islington, but now they've sort of transferred it online. And I went along, signed up for Zoom, and it was amazing. And with what people are doing in their own spaces, in their own homes, and then bringing it together to share with the world. And she was saying, obviously the company, a lot of them that live in London but are from South America or in other parts of the world, and their parents have been able to see them for the first time ever performing. Right. So I don't think this is ever going to go away. I think that there's so much here that has been discovered that we'll certainly.
I completely agree. I mean, I think it's going to be a very exciting time, and people have had the tools and the time to think, and there's a lot of new and interesting things happening as a result. It's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah, and we both know Joseph Jaffe, who started Corona TV, his TV show, in lockdown. I think really from the conversation I had with him, really for his own well-being.
Exactly.
of just keeping busy, keeping your brain kind of working. How did you meet Joseph? Was it through sort of?
So it's really funny. We are we'd never really met before. And we were Facebook friends, Facebook friends. And I my birthday was in July. And I got a happy birthday post from him. And I thought, well, how nice. And when I get someone post something like that, I always take a minute to say thank you. And his post said, hey, happy birthday, such and such. Check out this show I'm doing. You get a shout out today. And I thought, oh, well, that's unusual, but thank you. And then of course I was like, okay. So I watched his show, and it's this guy sitting at home talking about what's happening in the world and interviewing somebody different every day. And 3, 4, 5 minutes into the show, I thought, what, this guy's the most charming, interesting, quirky person ever. So I sent him a note after the show, and I'm like, hey, I watched the show. Good for you for sitting in front of your camera and pontificating and thinking and talking and then meeting new people. What a great way.
Yeah.
So he said, would you like to be on the show? So sure. Yeah. Okay. So a couple of weeks later, I was on the show, and I just fell in love with this guy. He's just such a good spirit. He's the kind of person that you're like, I want to protect you forever. Yeah. I want to protect that sense of wonder and that sense of curiosity. And so, he and I, we've never been in the same room together. We've never had a beer together, but like, I would absolutely tell you that guy's a very good friend.
Yeah.
And he's a perfect example of someone saying, okay, I've got a bad situation. I'm stuck at home. I'm going to make the best of it. And I have an idea. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to meet new people every day, and I'm going to invite other people to participate in the community. And like, he's done it every business day for over a year now. And like, way to go.
I know. I love that. I mean, I love him too. And he is the reason that I started this podcast, because he was in a You Are the Media Zoom room talking to us as a community over here. And I thought, I could have just listened to him all day. So I stayed on afterwards and asked some questions and thought, no, I'm going to do it. I actually am going to do it. So
he's terrific.
He inspired me. So I mean, and what do you do what have you done in lockdown for your well-being?
Oh, that's a good question. So I actually left Coke in June. So I've had some time. I took some time this past year to I think spent some time just to get to know myself again. Sometimes you just get so wrapped up in your own career that you kind of lose yourself along the way. So I've been fortunate to do that. I'm consulting for a number of startups, a number of music tech startups. I just joined the board of a nonprofit organization called Giving Kitchen here in Atlanta that helps raise money for food service restaurant workers who don't have benefits and that kind of stuff, particularly in times like these. And then, like I said, I'm consulting for a bunch of different companies, and it's just been really fun. Someday I'm going to write a book. So occasionally I sit down and try to write a chapter here or there, and someday I'll pull it all together and put a cover on it and call it something. But until then, I'm just enjoying life and getting to know new people. It's been, it's a pleasure that we got to meet through Joseph, and this is what life is about.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's what I love about the podcast is just reaching out and meeting new people and just talking, because that's what I love to do.
Me too.
This is my content marketing. This is me marketing.
Yeah, it's great.
I love it. I mean, next week I'm talking to Tom Morris, which I'm also very excited about.
The best. That guy is incredible.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. I've got a very long list of questions to ask him, but
so do I. I have a very long list to ask him as well. So please tell him I said hello. He's again a person that I met that I never would have met, but I met him through Joseph's program. Yeah. And I sit on the edge of my seat when he talks. I'm like, wow, what an interesting person.
Yeah, no, I love it. So you said you've started a magazine, or you're in the process of working with some people around a magazine. What is
at the beginning of the pandemic, a friend of mine that used to run an agency in Boston called Modernista called me and said, hey, I'm getting together with this friend of mine who started Nylon Magazine and a magazine called Ray Gun Magazine. And we're starting a new magazine, and we need some help. And I thought, a magazine? well, that's a really bad idea. Initially that was my, like, why would you do that? And then I thought for a minute, and my reverse way of thinking sometimes is like, wait a minute, magazines are not cool. Wait a minute, that must mean magazines are cool. So, and I got to know Marvin Jarrett, the founder of Nylon, and I've known Gary for years. And the more we talked about it, the more he had a vision to start something that's really about quality storytelling, quality photography, quality production. And it's really like a piece of art. The first issue, and our second issue comes out in about 2 weeks. And it's part magazine and then part sort of content development play. And I just help them think about the brand and how to structure it and how to bring some corporate partners in. And as a result, I'm one of the co-founders. And it's one of those things that I never would have had time to even think about doing in a pre-pandemic world. So I thought, yeah, I've never done this before. This sounds fun. And I like I told you earlier, my whole life you're introduced as, Geoff Cottrill, and then your title is inserted.
Yeah.
And I wanted to purposely come out of leaving Coke and retiring from that place and thinking about what was next to be Geoff Cottrill, comma, lots of different things, not just Geoff Cottrill, comma, this is what I am. Because I don't want to be defined by a title or a job. I want to be defined by the way I think and the things I do. So
yeah,
this has been a great opportunity for me to do a whole bunch of different things,
yeah,
which is quite interesting.
And what would you tell young people then? Because I know obviously you've mentioned the word mentor quite often through our conversation. So there's obviously been people that you look at as mentors. Do you now coach young people? Do you?
Oh yeah, yes, I do. I have two daughters, first and foremost, that I try my best to be a good example for them. But yeah, I mean, so many people have helped me along the way, so I try to do my best to help people. I encourage people to, it's easy to say, oh, find something you love. Well, you know what? You're not always going to find something you love, and they call it work for a reason. So you're not going to be happy every single day when you get up and go someplace. But stay true to yourself and who you are, and be curious. Like, don't know it all. All right. We always feel like if we walk into a room or we're sitting in a Zoom and we're not the one that's the smartest person in the room, that somehow we fail. And I think there's great power in knowing that you're not the smartest person in the room and embracing it. I'm going to die someday not knowing everything. It's true.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to accept that early. It's okay to not know everything. What's not okay is to not be curious about your journey and about the things and the situations that you're in. And I tell people that you maintain that sense of wonder and curiosity in everything you do, and you're going to find yourself in the places that make you happy. And it's on you. Happiness is a choice. It's not a gift. It's not a right. It's a choice. And you can get to happiness a lot faster with a sense of wonder and curiosity in your heart and your mind. That's what I try to tell people.
Yeah. Oh, happiness is a choice. I thought I invented that. I thought that was my quote. But because so many people don't realize that, do they?
No, they don't. In fact, it's funny. 3 or 4 months ago, I was talking to somebody, and it was like talking to an agency or something in a Zoom. And I just blurted that out. And I was like, happiness is a choice. And I thought to myself, well, that's good. I should write that down. Yeah. So now I know I have you to thank for it. So it just occurred to me. I was like, wow, what a great way to like, oh, I want to keep that. So thank you.
Absolutely true. Well, I can't let you go without just quickly talking to me about the people that you've worked with, because there's a list from Paul McCartney through to rappers, Joni Mitchell, Pharrell. I mean, was that through Converse, or where have you?
Part of it was through my time at Coca Cola. Part of it was through my time at Starbucks. Part of it was at my time certainly at Converse. When I was at Starbucks, we were fortunate. We signed literally legitimate direct record deals with Paul McCartney, Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, where we were the record label and we were the partner in distributing the record. So I was fortunate that I got to meet Patty Spinks, which was Paul's manager at the time, and ultimately got to meet Paul, which was, for me, one of the greatest thrills of my life. Backstage with him, asking him questions, and then him pulling out a stack of Polaroid photos of at the time his 6 or 7 year old daughter Beatrice, showing me oh, this is, let me show you my baby pictures. I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm standing with a Beatle and he is showing me his baby pictures. This is one of the greatest moments of my life. And then James Taylor being one of my personal favorites, personal heroes, seeing him sing and recording a record with him, and then getting to meet people like Pharrell. Yeah, I mean, I've been incredibly fortunate that I've got to meet these people, and I tend not to get starstruck because I just see them as people. And every single person that I've met have given me some insight to how real and how good they are as humans and people. So I've been very, very lucky, very fortunate.
I can't help but think that you've sort of engineered this fantastic life for yourself.
I don't know how. I think my parents have always taught me to be nice to people and to have a positive attitude. And, they've never directly said this to me, but kind of lean forward, right? Just sort of like, just kind of stumbled my way through life, but always trying to be positive and optimistic. And if I fall, I'm going to fall on my face, but it's easier to get up because you can push yourself up. Yeah. And so I just followed things that I'm interested in, that I'm curious in, and that, I've wound up in rooms, meeting people that, I'm like, how did I get here? Like, how did I get to this room? This is so weird.
So what's next? What's the...
Good question. Yeah. I'm going to continue. I'm certainly, I have lots of different opportunities, but I'm taking my time. The most important thing for me in my next choice and whatever it is I do is I'm looking for the right people to work with. I want the right kind of people around the table with me. I want people that aren't like me. I want people that don't look like me. I want people that don't come from the same place I come from. And I would love to work with a group of people that can model and demonstrate what the world should look like. Like, we know what the world looks like, but for some reason, from the world to the boardroom, things look very different. And so I'd love nothing more than to find a really interesting group of diverse thinking people with diverse backgrounds and to do something remarkable together with them. Yeah. That's what I'm looking to do. But people, first and foremost, are really my only criteria right now is, am I going to be interested to work with you? Am I going to learn from you? Are we going to do interesting things together? I'm not at a place in my life where I don't need to work. I want to work, but it's not about money or title or any of that stuff anymore. I think I've outgrown that part of my career. And now it's just about, I just want to be surrounded by people that are interesting and that we're doing interesting things. And at the end of the day, I can say, that's cool. I learned something new today.
Yeah. But in no particular area. So it's the music or the
No. My daughter's a musician. So the music world belongs to my daughter. And I am so happy to just be her dad. Yeah. And I have 2 daughters. One's a producer in advertising, and I'm couldn't be any more proud of both of them. And I'm nothing. Music will be something that I listen to, and now I get to occasionally go to one of my daughter's concerts, and that's cool. But like working in the music business I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, as I was saying to you earlier, my daughter's been writing in lockdown, and it's just amazing what they can come up with just on their phones. I mean, and it's like she's got a full orchestra and a backing band, sort of backing.
Right.
Amazing.
Right. Just give people the tools and the time and the space, and it's remarkable what they can create. It's crazy. It's fun. So it makes the world a fun place.
So I'm looking forward to going to one of my daughter's concerts in the future.
Yeah, me too. I'd love to join you.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, thank you so much for your time today, Geoff. It's been absolutely amazing, a privilege and a pleasure to talk to you. So
the privilege and pleasure has been all mine, I can tell you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for spending time with me. I'm going to say goodbye, and again, thank you very much for being here, Geoff Cottrill.
Thanks.